Good morning. Another glorious Sunday morning here. Got some amazing people here going to do some amazing stuff with college football. Going to take a look at some breakout players we're looking to watch for the year. So we'll get into that a little bit here in a second, but let's go ahead and introduce the squad we've got joining us this morning. Right now, we've got the CEO of WTP Sports Dudes, Mr. Robert Brown. How's it going over there on Sunday?
Everything is going fantastic on this Sunday morning. Glad to see you two here this morning. Hopefully, we'll get another WTP Sports dude or two on here this morning. But I'm glad to see you both having a good Sunday morning so far.
For sure, for sure. Hopefully, definitely a few more will pop on here. Maybe they get rolling a little bit. So we introduced the CEO. Now let's introduce the COO, the Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Postgame. What's going on over there in your world today?
Man, it is all good, man. I'm excited to be on with you fellas as always, man. Had a good time yesterday with my children. Got to kick it with them and go a few places. Now I'm here to talk some sports. Let's get it, fellas.
You know, we're gonna be rolling through your neck of the woods next, not this coming weekend, but the next one. We got to go over to Missouri. We're gonna be rolling right through Indianapolis.
Yeah, man. Just know Texas A&M gear, and you'll be fine.
No, we're actually planning on stopping back at the Speedway because any of the NASCAR is gonna be racing there that weekend. We're thinking of stopping there on the way back.
Nice.
So, well, other than that. Again, great to see everybody. Like to see everybody in the chat. Drop your any offensive and defensive breakout players y'all might have in the chat. But we're going to go ahead and jump into this. So we're just going to look at some people we're looking at around the country for breakout players. Now, breakout players doesn't mean Arch Manning. Okay, he's not a breakout player. CJ Carr is not a breakout player. We're talking about under the radar people that could, by the end of the season, you'll know who they are. So that's what we're going to do here today. And we're going to kick it off with Mr. Robert up there with give me your first offensive breakout player.
My first offensive player that I want to talk about is Trent Mosley, wide receiver out of USC. I feel like with the departure of Malachi Lemon, they're going to need a guy who can step up and take some of that reception production on, and I think he's going to be the guy. They got another guy as well that I might get to mention later on, but I really like Trent Mosley, the wide receiver. I think he's going to be a breakout player for USC this year at wide receiver.
Yeah, that's a loaded wide receiver room at USC too, with all the recruits they brought in. So, and with what they lost, somebody's got to step up, and you never know what you're going to get from a true freshman. So that's a solid pick right there. That's definitely a good pick there. You got anything on Mosley you want to throw in there post game?
No, somebody in that USC wide receiver room has to step up. Like you mentioned, I know they're extremely talented, but they lost some really huge contributors at the wide receiver room. So Trent Mosley is definitely one of the guys I got my eyes on to step up and fill those roles.
For sure, 100%. Well, let's go ahead and jump into your first offensive breakout player.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's somewhat known, and I'm looking at the TCU transfer. I'm gonna go with Josh Hoover at IU. The reason why I picked him for a breakout player on offense across the nation is he's in a better situation with Kirk Cignetti. If you look at Kirk Cignetti's first two transfer quarterbacks being O'Rourke and then, of course, the Heisman winner Mendoza, he elevated both of their games. I expect him to do the same thing for Josh Hoover. 29 touchdowns, 13 interceptions last year at TCU. I expect those interceptions to go way down, and I think he's going to have a humongous season. He might even be a dark horse for the Heisman candidate.
Wow, that's pretty high praise there. Hoover had a good season, obviously at TCU last year. It's a step up in competition in my mind, moving into the Big Ten. So we'll see what he does, but that's a pretty good pick there. You got anything on Hoover, Rob?
I really like Hoover, and I think once he gets in a system that is so freaking technical and so freaking disciplined, it's going to allow him to really improve his game. I think we had seen a few times last year at TCU where he might have been a little sporadic, a little inconsistent. But I think in this Indiana system under Cignetti, the discipline that they play with, the attention to detail that they play with, is going to make Hoover look so much better than last year. And I think he's going to be an unbelievable player. He has weapons all around him. I'm anxious to see him as well post game. I think that's a really good pick.
Yeah, that is a solid pick. And you're spot on, Robert, with the attention to detail. If y'all remember back in spring ball, what old Sig did with Nick Marsh with the shoes, he doesn't play that. He knows blue collar. That's just what you're going to get from him. So that's a really good pick for Hoover to have a breakout. I really would see that. We did have, who was it? Northside Roger throughout, I believe, post game you put this up, or Rob, one of y'all. Well, went with Simeon Price, a running back from Oregon. Well, it was his breakout, one of his breakout players. So that's not a bad pick either. I mean, Oregon's got the weapons to do it. They're just going to have take some pressure off of Moore up there, and the running backs. Y'all know running backs help take pressure off quarterbacks. It's a good pick there. I went with a running back. I went with E.J. Crowell from Alabama. Last year, if you remember Alabama, what was the talk we all said? They can't run the ball. They can't run the ball. They can't run the ball. Well, this is a 5-star freshman from the state of Alabama. He's a true freshman, so that puts a little pause on it. So I went with him because with projected Keelan Russell being the starting quarterback, he's going to have a running back behind him to help. So I chose him. Looking at him, seeing what I've seen from him, just kind of watching some stuff on him, he kind of reminds me of the ability to build into a Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs type running back. So I think he's going to have a phenomenal season this year. Any thoughts on EJ? And Doug dropped in Keelan Russell, which, I mean, I think we all already know. So
he's going to have to win that job, right, Keelan Russell? Is he going to be in a battle or competition with somebody?
He is, but I mean, I think it's kind of one of those, we need to play him or we're going to lose him. And you don't want to lose a talent like that. It's NFL terms. You draft the number one quarterback. Your fan base wants to see that guy on the field, right? You drafted one of the best quarterbacks coming out of that class recruited wise. And, the fans want to see him to see what he can do. At some point, you have to see what he can do, or else you're going to, in this day and age, he's going to be gone. And he's probably going to come back and bite you when he leaves. So that's kind of my thought on Keelan Russell is I think you have to give him a shot no matter what, in my opinion. Yeah. Got another little one right here. I don't know. This Tradez Green. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd consider him a breakout. That dude was a monster last year. So, but, I mean, it could be a good pick, as a tight end. Love the the people dropping names in the chat here, guys. I know Keyshawn Singleton and wide receiver Chaz Nimrod from Auburn. Lots of good picks rolling in today.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I like both of those.
Yeah. So let's flip it over and go ahead and look at a defensive player you're looking for on the breakout side. And, we're going to do back and forth here. We're going to go offense, defense a few times. So, Post, can you give me a breakout defensive player you're looking at?
SEC Sean, I'm staying at IU for my defender, and I'm going with Joshua Burnham, the defensive end transfer from Notre Dame. He sits at 6'4", 253 pounds. Now, I know IU got multiple defensive ends in the transfer portal, but the reason why I think he's going to break out this season is at the latter part of the season last year, Joshua Burnham was probably the best defensive end at Notre Dame. He made a lot of huge plays. I was sick when he hit the transfer portal. I think IU got a really good football player in Joshua Burnham, and I expect him to break out this year for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I saw flashes of him. I was shocked he hit the portal myself, so I get what you're saying there. It's always rough when you see flashes from a guy and then they leave. Any insight on Hammond, Rob? Or
I mean, I think he got a really good pick right there. I'm anxious to see if IU can continue to do what they did the last couple of seasons defensively, being able to hold teams down. Now, of course, when they ran into Ohio State 2 years ago, their defense didn't fare so well, but they did really good against everyone else. But last year, they really were – they were one of the best defenses in the country. And I think when you add a guy like who post-game name, he's going to be one of those players that's going to be able to solidify that defense this year. So I'm anxious to see him play as well.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. What about your next defensive player, or your first defensive player, I should say, Rob?
My first defensive player that I think is going to be a breakout player this year is Mason Curtis, safety out of Michigan. He's played over 500 snaps during his time there, and this is going to be the year for him to be a full-time starter, a breakout guy. When you talk about 500 snaps, that's a lot of opportunities to see what offenses are doing. That's a lot of opportunities to get to learn that system and to learn that position. Of course, they got a new coach coming in, bringing in some new coordinators. But I think when you got 500 snaps under your belt, you're able to fit in any system and understand what the terminology is. And I think he's going to be a great starter for Michigan this year because of all of that experience that he has, having over 500 snaps.
Yeah, having that many snaps under your belt does nothing but just lean into experience, leadership type, versus it doesn't matter what level. And if you're playing, I don't care if you're playing junior high football, if you've got 500 snaps under your belt, you've got some experience, you know how to read things. So that's another good solid pick there. I am going to jump over and take this one. This one was a little bit of a stretch. I'm actually going to stick at Alabama with Landon Simmons. Now, defensive tackle, going back to last year to Alabama, kind of the opposite of offense. They struggled to stop the run so much. They couldn't run the ball, and they had trouble stopping it. So I went with the defensive tackle, Landon Simmons. Excuse me. He had 266 snaps last year as a freshman. He had 1.5 sacks, 19 tackles. He made freshman all-SEC team. But Alabama needs to find some depth on that D-line. They lost 8 guys off that defensive front last year. 6 transferred out and 2 went to the NFL draft. they have got to find somebody to step up and lead that unit, and somebody that's returning with that many snaps under their belt has got to take a step to be the leader. And watching Alabama's spring, kid looked good. The flashes are there. You can see it. He just has to put it all together. So I went with London Simmons, defensive tackle from Alabama. And being that my Aggies play them, I'm hoping he doesn't flash. But that's just
There's a couple of players that some of the guys in the chat have mentioned. And let's go to this one by Tim. He's talking about Devin Sanchez, the cornerback at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. We all know coming out of high school, out of Texas, was a highly sought after defensive back, cornerback. I know that it was a battle for me when he didn't go to Texas because we needed him so badly, and he decided to go to Ohio State. That was one guy that we were really after. I'm quite sure Texas A&M had him on their board as well. But I really like Devin Sanchez. I think he's going to be a really good addition there. And another one I wanted to mention was from Northside, Roger. He talked about Dallas, the defensive lineman out of Utah who transferred to Penn State. And when you get a guy from a Utah program that played under Cal Willingham who transfers out and doesn't follow him to Michigan, which we all know Michigan puts out some tremendous defensive linemen, says a lot about this player and the fact that he wanted to go somewhere like a Penn State under a really good coach like Matt Campbell, who has the same kind of philosophy as Cal Willingham. I really like that pick as well. I didn't want to mess up Dallas's last name, so I didn't want to butcher it, so I didn't say it.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the names we are going to butcher. We all know that, especially when you start getting into some of them offensive and defensive linemen. Boy, we're going to have some names. So that's where we are with our first round. We'll jump over to the second round and let Rob lead off with your second offensive breakout player you're watching.
My second offensive player that I'm really going to be watching this year, and we got to see glimpses of him last year, was Andrew Marsh, the wide receiver out of Michigan. I think there were times when the Michigan's offensive coordinator went away from Nick Marsh, especially when the head coach was on the sideline. When the interim was in, we seen a lot of Andrew Marsh. But whenever the head coach was on the sideline, we didn't see so much of Andrew Marsh. And I think this year we're going to see a really good production from Andrew Marsh. I think they understand that they got to get the ball in this young man's hands, much like Miami's going to do with Malachi Tony. I think he might not be Malachi Tony, but he's definitely pretty close. I think in the open space, this guy can make some things happen. And I think Michigan understands that. I know Cal Willingham is going to be able to use him as a weapon. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Andrew Marsh does at Michigan at that wide receiver position.
Yeah, Andrew Marsh is somebody that's going to have to step up, I believe, a little bit out there. So I like that pick a lot for somebody to break out. I like that one a lot. Post?
Yeah, SEC Sean, I am going to Louisville as my for one of my breakout candidates, and I'm calling Lincoln Kingholz, the transfer quarterback from Ohio State. He's 6'3", 214 pounds. Now, he was in a close battle with Julian Sayin for QB1 at Ohio State. He doesn't win the job, obviously, transfers to Louisville. I think he brings a little bit of rushing upside, and then having him under the Brown brothers, and we know what the Brown brothers do for quarterbacks, and you add his talent with the Brown brothers, I think Lincoln Kingholz, the quarterback from Louisville, is going to have a breakout season this year.
Yeah, that's one of those, anytime you are at Ohio State, obviously you're very talented. And when you're battling Julian Sayin and ultimately lost the job, it definitely makes it noteworthy. And then transferring to a Louisville, that kid, he could have a hell of a season. That's another solid pick there post game. You got any thought on the transfer quarterback over there, Rob?
Man, anytime you can push a Julian Sayin for a starting position in fall ball with an opportunity to be called the number one guy, and we've seen what Julian Sayin did last year, this is one heck of a pick. And I'm telling you right now, Lincoln Kingholz is probably saying his prayers every day, thanking the Lord above, because he landed in one of the best spots possible for any big-time quarterback, because them Brown brothers can coach their tail off, man. And I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. He has weapons all around him, too. Probably the best running back in terms of home run hitting running back in Brown. And I also believe that they got that wide receiver back that was the guy that went to all the time when in pressure situations. I think this Kingholz as quarterback for Louisville is going to be a phenomenal thing this year. I'm going to be watching Louisville closely because I think they can put some pressure on Miami and try to get that ACC title under their belt.
For sure. For my next offensive pick.
Good evening. How's everything going?
I didn't even catch you pop in there, Moss. Sorry about that. I'm over here. I got work blowing up my phone, so I'm trying to do a little bit of everything. So didn't even catch you. How you doing over there today?
I'm a little delayed a little bit.
There? Yeah, it looks like it might be. Looks like you're freezing up. All right. We'll get back to Moss when he rejoins here in a second and bring him in. We'll let him kind of catch up a little bit. But my next offensive is I am going to take Ethan Davis. He's a tight end out of Tennessee. Obviously, the Joey Aguilar situation, not being able to come back, Tennessee's got to figure out their quarterback. As I mentioned with the running back for Alabama, a tight end can also be a quarterback's best friend, especially when you've got a new quarterback trying to break him in. We all know Josh Heupel can coach up quarterbacks. We know that for a fact. So I went with Ethan Davis. Missed a little bit of time, but very solid, flashy, got good moves. More of the receiving tight end more than a blocking tight end. So I think he's going to be a big safety blanket for whoever decides to play quarterback at Tennessee. So I think he could have a really breakout season this year and kind of put his name on the map as one of those tight ends that, kind of surprises and just comes out of nowhere for us. So that's where I went with Ethan Davis.
Yeah, that's a good pick, man. One thing that stands out about Davis is his size at 6'5", 240 plus pounds. That definitely can be a quarterback's best friend moving down the middle.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. If he can get to the point where his inline blocking gets to be to the point where he can be on that field all day, he becomes an even more dynamic weapon, because at that point, you don't know what he's going to do, and he can creep off that line, especially because Heupel is going deep a lot of times, and if he can draw those defenders deep and drop something underneath to that tight end, Ethan Davis, that could be a monster play for them. A guy who has that size, speed, can get down the field once he gets that catch. And I think that's a really good pick. I'm anxious to see him as well.
Well, we seem to be having some technical difficulties still with Mossberg. There he is. Are you here now? Still got a delay going, it looks like.
It might be the background, bro.
It might be.
I don't mind. I do apologize. Difficulties. Yeah, that's what I'm about to do. Switch the background up. I'm about to go out and come back in.
All right, we'll get back to you as soon
Is it
as
still acting up, or how does it sound now?
I mean, it sounds okay now, but you're a little kind of robotic. So we're going to play some catch up when Moss jumps back in. But while we're waiting on Moss, let's go ahead and roll over and shift down to post game down there. Give me your second defensive player.
I'm gonna stay at Louisville for this pick, SEC Sean.
Okay.
I'm going DJ Waller, the cornerback transfer from Kentucky. Now, the reason why I like this guy, he stands at 6'3", 210 pounds at the cornerback position. The last 2 years, he only played a combined 9 games, so he has to stay healthy. He has to stay healthy for sure. But I believe if Waller is to stay healthy at Louisville with the pass rush that they're going to deploy this season, I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to make plays in that secondary. And again, standing at 6'3", 210 pounds, the young man stays healthy. I believe he's going to ball out this season and break out. Pencil me in for DJ Waller, cornerback, Louisville.
Yeah, solid pick there. I like the transfer from Kentucky over there. Kind of weird when you see a player, transfer from one rival to another. It's just weird to see it, but 100% for sure like that pick. Well, now it seems we have gotten everything worked out technically here with Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10. So without further ado, how you doing over there today? Maybe we don't have everything worked out with Mossberg from Level Up Sports 10.
Moss, you hear us?
You hear us, Moss?
I'm going through the navigation now, trying to make sure that we get it connected right on my end. And
yeah, you're
so keep going with what you're going with, and I do have mine. And I'm going to
just
not keep the view.
We'll work on it. Rob, what do you got defensive?
Defensively, I'm going with Jakeem Stewart, defensive alignment / defensive end out of USC. I feel like this is going to be a year for him. Last year, as a true freshman, he has a foot injury that kept him from playing a lot. He ended the season with 1.5 sacks and with 18 tackles. I expect that production to go up as long as he stays healthy. I really like what he brings to the table. A guy that you can put out there in a 3 technique, a 5 technique, and also out there on the edge. When you got a guy that's that versatile, you can move him around as a chess piece. And I think that's going to bode well for Gary Patterson and what he likes to do defensively, especially a guy who likes to do the 3 high safety. He likes to have it to where his defensive ends and his defensive linemen have an opportunity to get after the quarterback because the coverage on the back end takes away a lot of options for a quarterback, especially pre-snap. So I think that he's going to have opportunity to be really, really good for USC this year as long as that foot stays healthy and he stays healthy.
Yeah, that's always the big question when you're talking about foot injuries and stuff and how quick they can re-aggravate themselves. So health is always going to be at the forefront of anything with a player. But really, really solid pick there. Really solid pick. All right, Mossberger, you finally ready to join us? Are we going
Yes,
here now?
sir, man. I totally apologize again, man. I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to give my next defensive player, and then we're going to let you run through 4 players real quick, okay? That'll catch you up with us.
Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Appreciate
So,
it.
my next defensive player, if you can't tell by my name, you'll figure this out why. I went with Xavier Gilliam, another defensive tackle from Tennessee. Now, here's the reason. We all remember, probably, if you don't, there was some drama with Tennessee and their defensive lineman with one particular, I believe his name was Chaz Coleman, who transferred to Tennessee. Then all kinds of stuff went wild and crazy, and he's no longer with the program. This was their blue chip stud transfer they got for the defensive line. Well, he ain't there no more, so now you got to lean on somebody else to be the anchor of that line. And that's where I believe Xavier Gilliam comes in. Somebody that's been there, got a little bit of knowledge of the system, can kind of help with the continuity. We all know that linemen, all work as a unit, whether offensive or defensive. So this is somebody that's going to have to step up on Tennessee's defensive line, and I believe he will. I believe he's going to have a really good season. So that's just kind of where I went. I thought the loss of Chaz Coleman would hurt Tennessee, but I think this guy can kind of, I'm not saying he's Chaz Coleman level, but I think he can kind of offset that loss of Chaz Coleman a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Let me ask you a question, man. I know you locked in on the SEC. Do you think Tennessee can have one of the better defenses in the conference this year?
Yes. I think Tennessee can be improved from last year. Let me put it that way. With the new defensive coordinator down there. This be his first year down there. Jim Knowles. Name should sound familiar to a bunch of the Ohio State people. But I think it's going to be next year where you see the jump for this defense. I think this year's all about learning the scheme he wants to run and putting it in place versus, it's hard for players to just pick up a system, one of the harder systems to pick up in that fast. You're talking 18, 19, 20-year-olds trying to learn an NFL-style system, and there's going to be mistakes. And so I think they'll be improved, but I think next year you'll see the massive jump in that Tennessee defense.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Tennessee, the times that you have mentioned them. I've been watching this Tennessee team, and outside of them suffering injuries defensively over the last couple of years, if they could get to the point where they can get a solid 2 deep, possibly even 3 deep, which is what you see a lot of teams are focusing on now, because they know that they're going to have to rest players during spurts in the game so that they can be as fresh as possible in the fourth quarter to close out games. If Tennessee can get to that point, and I like the fact that they got Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles is a Steve Sarkisian's kryptonite because of that 3-high defense and the way he plays. I think that once he can get to that point where he can go 2 deep, sometimes even go to a third player at certain positions, Tennessee's going to be really, really good. And I know that the SEC has a lot of talented teams. It's just they got a middle of the pack that is really, really talented, but they just can't get over the hump. And I think in order for them to get over the hump, it's going to take them to be able to stockpile recruiting classes to get 2 and 3 deep at a lot of those skill positions.
%. So, without further ado, let's go ahead. Mossberg, go ahead and run through me 2 offensive breakout players. Give me the player and then the team.
My first offensive player on the side for the Oregon Ducks, I'm going to go to wide receiver, and I'm going to go Jeremiah McClellan. The reason I'm going Jeremiah McClellan, if we all know when we think of Oregon, we think of Evan Stewart coming back from his injury. But I think no one's speaking of Jeremiah McClellan. Last year, 38 catches, over 500 yards, 557, 3 touchdowns. 14.7 yards a catch is the big difference maker for me when you think about production. And if you think of Evan Stewart earlier in his career, I'm mentioning him because McClellan brings that and more. So when you have a Jeremiah McClellan who can stretch that field over the middle, but his speed on the outside is different. And I think if we really put some of these wide receivers to the test in that speed, Jeremiah McClellan's speed will run off the chart. So he's one of the guys I picked out of Oregon on that offensive side of football. I think is going to make an instant impact and have a heck of a year this year, breaking out in that Big Ten as well as across the NCAA. Put a lot of people on notice. Kind of reminded me of Hollywood Brown when he had that exchange and how his next year he performed and broke out, and everybody knew who he was from that speed. So I'm going to go with Jeremiah McClellan. And then I'm going to surprise people with this one. I'm going to go over to the ACC, a team that's only took a couple losses since joining in the ACC. They got a transfer at running back from another ACC conference, and if it's a reason they got him, I'm going to SMU, and I'm talking about Kendrick Raphael, 1,000-yard running back transferring in from Cal. I think he's the reason that Cal moved last year. And you add that back, who's not just electrifying. You think of his elusiveness, his ability to catch the ball, his ability to be tough. He's a one-man bandstand, but you add him with Jennings and this incredible SMU offense that's, I think, waiting to unleash this year. I was going to go to a couple different wide receivers on this SMU offense, but I had to respect the transfer coming in because no one's talked about him that I've been seeing, and he has to get some name put on there. And I'm going to go with Kendrick Raphael out of SMU. I think he can go for possibly about 1,300 yards. He had 20 touchdowns last year, so I think he could get about that, possibly more. So I think this running back room, throughout college football is going to be one to look at this year, especially some of the players that we're talking about on a breakout, the players that with this transfer, they're coming to teams with great quarterbacks and their abilities to be unleashed, as well as to unleash another quarterback's powers and Jennings that I'll say. So I went with Kendrick Raphael. I think he's a great running back.
Both solid picks. Not the pick I thought I was going to get for you from SMU there when you said SMU. I got a name at SMU that y'all boys need to know. Goes by the name of Thor. Theo Mellon Ostrom.
Yes.
Played tight end at A&M last year, transferred to SMU. Look for that kid. So, but really, really good picks there, both of them. Post, Rob, y'all got any thoughts on any of them or anything on those two?
I mean, I like that pick when he said Jeremiah McClellan, because I think when you had the injury to Evan Stewart and you had the injury to Decorian Moore during spurts of the season, that's who they went to. That's the guy who stepped up. Now you got a three-headed wide receiver room where if those guys buy into playing all three of those positions, and you can mix and match those guys in different spots on the field. Sometimes you might be in the slot, sometimes you might be in the outside, sometimes you might be on the right, sometimes you might be on the left. With a quarterback like Dante Moore, also with a good solid tight end, these guys could be really, really exciting, man. And I think that's a really good pick by Mossberg, going with Jeremiah McClellan. But I also like the fact that he mentioned Cal. When you're in a conference and you got Cal and you got Stanford, two of the more prestigious academic schools, you got an opportunity to get some athletes who can go to school for 2 or 3 years, get their degree, and then if they still love football, you can find a gym from both of those schools. And I think that's what the ACC conference, some of their teams is taking advantage of, the fact that they know that they can get an older player from a Stanford or a Cal that can come in as a junior, senior, and really go and ball out for them, because they've gotten a lot of play time at Cal or at Stanford, two of the lower level schools when it comes to sports right about now. Well, football anyway, right about now.
Yeah, I think Mossberg made some very good picks this morning. I like the pick at wide receiver from Oregon. And listen, fellas, if Oregon is gonna have these elite wide receivers, man, you should like Dante Moore even more as far as Heisman candidates. And the running back at SMU was interesting. I think if he does indeed break out, SMU is going to be better than a lot of people expect them to be. If you pairing that running back with Kevin Jennings.
Yeah, that's what's a little scary with SMU. Everybody's kind of looking at them as kind of a dark horse in the ACC, and if this running back fires off, they may elevate themselves from dark horse to real contender. So really solid pick. So real quick, Mossberg, let's run through two defensive players you're looking at.
Two defensive players. The crazy thing, I'm staying with these same two teams because I'm putting the world on notice. The reason I'm staying with SMU is because you got to think about the ACC. You don't just come into a conference. You think of Oregon. Oregon came in and they won the Big Ten. ACC, you had SMU. They've been making this playoff picture a lot more difficult these last few years. So respectively, I'm staying there. So when you say offense, you said defensive side of the ball, SMU, I'm going to DeSoto, Texas. From y'all's background, y'all know who I'm going to, possibly Brandon Booker. You talk about a linebacker that's going to cause wreck. And for me, I think the skill set that he brings to the table, he's not just a linebacker. He could cover as well. When you talk about some of those slot receivers coming across, he could tap them. And when he matches up with the tight ends, it's like he's the cornerback out there. That's how versatile he is at his linebacker position. And I think about the years when he played his senior year in high school at DeSoto. He had a similar season last year, and where he had tackles for loss, just total tackles. He played 13 games, started 11. So to have 69 tackles and 29 solo and just 11 games started to be third on the team in tackles, that's a big feature for me for a team that's trying to make a statement. So I got Brandon Booker for SMU at that linebacker position, and I think it'll be a name that starts to ring bells throughout the NCAA football season this year. And I'm going with a position I love to play myself, and I'm staying with the Oregon Ducks on this one as well. And I'm going to Peyton Woodyard. I think when you talk about a 6'2", 208-pound safety, that's NFL prototype safety. When you have that type of safety in college, we've seen them, and we've seen them go to the next level. I think this is a year, and he's a St. Bosco product. You know about him, SEC, and I'm sure Post know about him. His IQ is at a level to where I think coming into this season is much needed for that Oregon defense. I think, like we said, on that offensive side, McClellan taking them to the next level with DeCorian and that receiver. I think Woodyard could take this defense to the next level with his IQ and abilities to play that strong safety position. So I'm picking Peyton Woodyard, in which last year he had 22 tackles, 9 solo tackles, and assisted on 13. So that's a big deal to me when you play in that safety position. That means you putting a helmet on them when you come down, and if they come in your area, you making that tackle. So that's why I chose those guys. I think it's going to be a big year, not just for them, but their schools and their programs as well. Oregon, SMU coming in 2 conferences, ACC and the Big Ten. I think it's great for college football moving forward.
Anybody? Rob, post game, anything on any of those two? Woodward or Booker?
Great picks.
Yeah, those
great
are
picks.
Well, absolutely, those are monster picks, and I'm excited to see those players play this year.
But not to forget, he had an interception return too. He did have an interception return, and I think with his length and the way the Big Ten is starting to pass the ball a lot more we've seen last year, I think the possibility of him to increase those interceptions this year is very heavy to where he could possibly get 4 to 5 interceptions, which is tough to play at a safety position. But if you can get that, that shows that high IQ, which I mentioned, being a St. Bosco product. You know, we seen you on ESPN, you know, throughout your high school days. So just good to see these guys still doing what they do best and to be able to talk about them at this next level as well also.
Now, one thing though, that Oregon safety room is going to be nasty because with the guy Mossberg talked about, they also got the transfer from Minnesota this season.
I'm glad you said that. I can't remember his name. I was stuck on his height and that IQ, and then I thought about his pops as well. Shout out to his pops, Gerald. He played at Long Beach State from '88 to '91, and I think when you have, you know, a pops that played wide receiver, you're playing that safety position. The knowledge that you could get from him, you know, I think that, you know, helps that IQ. But like you said, Post, I think this Oregon secondary probably the best we've seen in this landing tenure as well. So this secondary, if Oregon secondary can pop this year, man, it's going to be some college football games that we see that's going to be instant classics as we seen last year as well.
Well, I can't speak on the safety from out there at Oregon. I'm not too familiar with him. That's why he could be a breakout player. But your SMU pick, solid. I've watched that kid for years down there at DeSoto High School. SMU was garbage for the longest time. Y'all all know that. But SMU made a point to start recruiting the DFW area out of Duncanville, South Oak Cliff, DeSoto. All those schools right there near Dallas were winning back-to-back state titles in Texas high school football. And they just started raiding those teams. Kelvin Jennings from South Oak Cliff. So that's what really put SMU back on the map. We just want to recruit Dallas. And that's what their slogan is. So really, really good pick there with Booker for sure. We're going to go through one more round. I know, Rob, you need to bounce at about 10, you said. So if you need to bounce, I can let you run through both of your picks, your first two, and then if you need to bounce, you can cut on out and we'll go on through. Or are you good to go in the regular rotation?
I'm good to go.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to jump back and we're going to continue with Mossberg. See, this is what it is. You show up late, you get to go all the time, and then you get to go first. Look at that right there.
You know, I'm ready to cook.
So give me your next, your final offensive breakout player.
Man, it was tough. And I haven't really talked a lot about the ACC, but I'm staying in the ACC. You know, I'm staying in the ACC because he got a transfer running back. His team, like I said, they've only lost a couple games since coming to the ACC. He's loaded at the wide receiver position. Jalen Cooper from SMU is one of his receivers, but I'm talking about that man Jennings from SMU. We know what type of year he had last year, but when you add a running back that you could throw the football to out of the backfield, SMU was this close to being the team that was undefeated last year. If you go back, some of the mental mistakes that was made, I think Brandon Booker having a breakout year, Jennings having a breakout year. I think this SMU team, not just the dark horse, I think they are a team that's wanting to play as the underdog to prove all the naysayers wrong. I think this is just a tough team. And I know I'm a Florida State fan, talking a lot about SMU, but I've actually watched this SMU team since they've came in the ACC. And I think they've changed a lot of how some of the teams play in the ACC. They've made recruiting tougher. That transfer portal has been great to them. So I think you have to respectively talk about SMU and the fact that they've only had 2 losses as well. So I'm taking Jennings from SMU to go for possibly 4,000 passing yards. And like you said, he have a trio of receivers and he have a running back. We talked about him last year, but I think this year is the year that he really puts on the show and becomes that quarterback and edges himself to possibly a top pick in this NFL draft and get talked about along Decoria Moore, Julian saying, along with the others, a lot more as well.
Post game, you got your next offensive player ready to roll?
Yes, indeed, I do. SEC Sean, I am going to the Midwest, and I'm looking at Notre Dame, and I'm looking at the running back position. My breakout player is going to be Aeneas Williams, fellas. Now, a lot has been said about Love and Price leaving for the NFL, and those were two dynamic running backs. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at Aeneas Williams, this is a versatile running back. This is a guy who can run between the tackles and who can destroy you in the passing game. Really good hands, really good route runner. Just think back to 2024, that playoff game against Penn State. Jeremiah Love really banged up with a knee issue. Aeneas Williams was making plays down the field on that Penn State defense in the passing game and the running game. I'm really excited for Aeneas Williams this season. I think he's going to break out and have a good season. My third breakout player, Aeneas Williams, running back, Notre Dame.
Yeah. Big shoes to fill. Got some big shoes to fill. He's like them Ronald McDonald clown shoes that he got to fill. So we're going to see, but that's a good pick right there for sure. We know Notre Dame's going to have a running back. We know that. So this is just the next in line. Rob, where are you going offensive here?
Offensively, I'm going with Ryan Wingo, wide receiver out of Texas. I feel like we saw sparks of him last year. He suffered a couple of injuries. He missed some time, but he still has some sparks out there, and he dropped a lot of passes too. He has some sparks out there where we feel like this year, when you add the additions of Cam Coleman, and if Emmett Mosley can be healthy, you can see a trio at Texas that is going to be really, really good. And I think Ryan Wingo has an opportunity now that the pressure is off of him, because last year as a true sophomore, he was wide receiver 1, and they needed Parker Livingston to step up. This year, he has some weapons around him that's going to allow him to just go out there and be him, not put all this on his shoulders and feel like he got to be the man. He's going to have opportunities to really get that ball in his hands and get a lot of yak yards. And I think he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver, something that we don't see quite often at Texas. But I think this year we're going to get 1, possibly even 2. And I think Ryan Wingo is going to be one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think too much was put on Ryan Wingo last year. I think being QB1 for him, just kind of, he wasn't ready for that spotlight. And I think you saw it with some of the distractions and the drops. But there's no doubt the kid's electric. I mean, you throw him a 2-yard screen pass and he's taking it 90. I mean, he's really, really good. So, yeah, I mean, serious breakout potential there from him. I'm going to stay in the same state. I know that's shocking to everybody. But just going to go to the better of the two schools there in College Station. And I'm going to take – this was tough, though. I had 2 choices here on my breakout player because both of them have underachieved and are due. But I went with Terry Bussey, wide receiver from Texas A&M. This was Mr. Texas high school football from a little bitty school in Texas. Phenomenal athlete. State championship game, he threw a 90-yard touchdown pass. He ran a 90-yard touchdown pass, and he returned a kickoff 90-something yards for a touchdown in the state championship game. Super electric kid, super dynamic, hasn't lived up. Some of that is the juggling of the quarterbacks. You get used to Connor Wegman. He kind of looked good with him, and then Marcel Reed takes over, and it's a different dynamic. Reed was running a lot his first year. But I think this is a year Terry Bussey has to step up. He's not the expected to be one of the big ones out there. You've got Craver, Horton, Ashton Bethel Roman. Bussy can kind of go under the radar and pounce when he's ready. So I think that might help him. It's a good to me that the kid can play wide receiver. He can play running back. He was a quarterback in high school, so, you could have some trick stuff there. So I'm looking for Terry Bussey to have a breakout. I was torn between him and Reuben Owens. They're both on the same level in my mind, but I went with Bussey just because I think he needs to do something. So go ahead.
No, I was about to say, I seen what you had said. I didn't know we switched over to my teams, but I'm going to just dive in on the running back as well to start. And I was, I had Usman Kroma. Y'all know I've been talking about him since day one, early enrollment at Florida State. We got a, miniature dose of him at Alabama, watching him last year, that first game with Alabama, seeing the power, the speed. He reminded me of a Greg Jones running back. People didn't realize how big of a player and how great of a running back Greg Jones was, who went to play in the NFL. And I think this is his year to go above the ceiling. I don't even see 1,000 yards being a big breakout. For me, it's all purpose. Catching the ball out of the backfield, being that blocker that through that pass games, having Ashton Daniels in and trying to get that ball out to some of those great receivers we have as well. So I think having Usman Kroma in that backfield alongside Trey Wisner coming in off injury from Texas, I think this Florida State backfield is actually the most elite backfield that I've seen in these last few years, going through what we've been going through in this Norvell era. I think, as well as I wanted to put Wisner here, because when Florida State get running backs off of an injury, Dalvin Cook is now all pro in the NFL. People forget about work done in his times when he had an injury. So Florida State's running backs, when they get them and they come in off an injury, I don't know what that program is when it comes to that workout, but it does pay dividends in that upcoming season. So I think Wisner, Kroma, along with a few other backs, I think this Florida State program could get back on the map. And I like Kroma, Usman being a big part of that as well, having a breakout year this year at running back for Florida State.
Yeah, I like that tandem as well, Mossberg. I think that's one of the more underrated tandems that we're going to see in college football this year. And I think having Trey Wisner there and having Usman, that's going to benefit Trey Wisner a lot. Last year, Trey Wisner didn't have that other back that could really help him in the rotation. And that hurt Trey Wisner when he had to be the everything back for Texas because they didn't have another guy that they could really go to. But at Florida State, he's going to have that opportunity to have a guy that can get that tough yardage and he can run those outside zones. I think this is going to be a really dynamic tandem. I can't wait to watch them run.
Excited myself, for sure. Did you want me to go to the other offensive side of the ball? You tell me, SEC, because when we talking about Florida State, my burning, it gets to going. Ready for this season for sure.
That's what we were doing. We're going to get to the defensive side next. We picked one for offense, one for defense. Moss trying to stack the
Can I just say Deuce Robinson one time? Can I just say Deuce Robinson one time? You know what I mean?
Player, though. Come on. Just like people mentioning Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons ain't a breakout player either. Colin Simmons already broke out. So let's go to the defensive side. And this time we're going to jump down to the bottom right with Mr. Post Game. Give me your defensive player there.
Yeah, the guy that I believe is going to break out is coming from the University of Notre Dame on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm going with Bryce Young, fellas, 6'7", 270-pound defensive end, opposite of Boubacar Traore. Listen, Bryce Young is highly touted coming out of high school. This is his junior year, I believe his redshirt junior year. He's been a really good player for Notre Dame, but his stats don't quite show it yet. I believe this is the year his stats show it. Again, being opposite of Boubacar, the Fighting Irish getting really good players in the interior of that defensive line is going to make it a lot easier for him to rush the passer and get tackles for loss. Really long arms, man. I believe in Bryce Young. His dad is an NFL Hall of Famer, and Bryant Young, my breakout player, my last breakout player of the year is the 6'7" defensive end from Notre Dame, Bryce Young.
Great smoke, man. I think he's a great one too, man. I think that takes me back to the defensive line y'all had in the middle years ago during that Brady Quinn era. I can't think of his name post. He commanded that defensive line. He was like a force. He had an injury, came back, was still a problem, went to the NFL. I think Bryce Young is definitely a great pick to have that breakout year. He could definitely be getting after many quarterbacks for sure.
Are you talking about Justin Tuck?
Yes, sir. Giant Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. That size is freakish. You know, so but that's really solid. To be that big is just, you know, that just put your paws up. That's all you got to do. Put them up. So great pick there. Jump up, Rob. Give me your defensive player. And if you say Colin Simmons, I'm kicking you out of here.
I'm definitely not saying Colin Simmons. He's not a breakout player. He's already done broken out. He's the man. So I'm going with Lance Jackson, defensive end out of Texas, true sophomore. He's going to be taking on that role on the other end. I feel like he's going to be a really good run supporter, but he also can get after the quarterback. A really strong kid. I really feel like when you got Colin Simmons on the other side, who's going to command so much attention, you have an opportunity if you're on the other side to really get after that quarterback, especially on those passing downs. And I really like Lance Jackson. There's some other guys that's going to be there too that I think are going to have some opportunities there as well. But Lance Jackson is probably going to be pegged as the starter because of his size and his physical ability. But when it comes to those passing downs, I think that when he's on that field, he's going to really be able to get after the quarterback and could possibly have around 7, 8, 9 sacks. So I'm looking forward to him being the man over there. I really like his upside. And I think Lance Jackson, defensive end out of Texas, is going to have a phenomenal year.
Yeah, that's a really good pick, Rob. And, you know, one thing about being a pass rusher is when your interior can hold his own. Y'all got that transfer from Arkansas. That dude like 9,000 pounds, man. He's huge.
Yeah, Ian Trafford is going to be a key addition for Texas. A guy who is mainly a zero technique right over the center, but he's going to command so much freaking attention. And those small linebackers at Texas are going to need that because a guy like Ian Trafford being able to take on double teams and still be able to hold up the line of scrimmage is going to allow those smaller linebackers to just hunt and get tackles. So I really like that. And I think that's going to help Lance Jackson as well, because you're not going to be able to double team him. You're going to have to put the tight end on Colin Simmons' side to chip him and double him. So Lance Jackson's going to have an opportunity to run free because of the additions that Texas have on that defensive front.
Yeah, that's a good solid pick there. And you're right. They're going to need something up front to kind of, I don't want to say hide the linebackers because their linebackers are a little smallish.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want to say hide them because the guys can fly to the ball. Well, we've seen that. But if you get too many of these big bruising running backs, those linebackers will start taking a toll on them. And they're going to think twice about leaning that hat down. So, really good picks, though. Moss, Give me your defensive player we're watching.
Man, I'm going right
if
back.
If you're going to Florida State, there's only one right answer.
I got a couple right answers. You've seen one in the chat. It's a couple of them, but I'm gonna take, one of the brothers. Had a great freshman impact last year. I think he's going to be a special product at this edge position and along this defensive line because he could play multiple positions. And I'm on another true sophomore, super sophomore. I'm big on that 10. Sophomore seasons are the number 10 I remember from high school being sophomore that 10th grade year. So I'm going Mandrell Desir. I think this kid is something special at Florida State. He also has a brother, and I know at Timmy mentioned Chris Jones, the linebacker transfer from Southern Mississippi. I had him down on my paper as well. But I think when you think of Desir, you're thinking of an All-American who was a freshman, 6.5 tackles. And when you see seasons for teams going at a disarray, the one little engine that could, along, with many others, but you'd seen Desir, he stood out, and his engine just did not stop. He had a motor. He was revved up. It was like how these good guys are here this weekend, and shout out to them being in town. They had that extra gear, and they was letting them streets feel that burn. So I think Mandrell Desir at Florida State, playing that edge position and defensive line at times, reminds me of Peter Boulware. And that's a big name to speak on. If you know football and you know college football, Peter Boulware was special at his position. So I'm putting Mandrell Desir in the category of some of the greats at Florida State and what he could do and elevate this program and his team this year. Super sophomore, I think it's that time to elevate, along with players that he was surrounded by, still stood out. So I'm going with Mandrell Desir out of Florida State and definitely looking at Chris Jones as well.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to throw you a Florida State name that you better watch there. Rylan Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
Edge from A&M that transferred out there.
Yeah, he's on my radar.
Man. That kid is freakish.
The talent that we have is pretty crazy with like you said, like Kennedy, certain players, like I wanted to, like with him transferring in, like I'm gonna hit on him in a different way because I think he could bring something special that gives Desir the ability to be able to play that edge position, shuffle along the line. Because like you said, Kennedy, he could play different areas, and it's like they starting to move and find the pieces at the right time. But it's just going out in the field and putting it together for me. And I think having him as well as Chris Jones, the growth of Jabril Rawls in the secondary, every level at Florida State, I think this is a year with some players coming into their own position. It could definitely increase into a great season defensively.
For sure. Well, my last pick, I'm going to stay where I went last time. Had a tough one with this. Y'all tell me if you think this is a breakout candidate because the kid played last year very well. I went with Ray Coney, linebacker. He had 120-something tackles last year at Tulsa, but he was at Tulsa. Now he's in the SEC. And we all know A&M had trouble with their run fits last year as somebody that can fill it. So would you consider him a candidate to break out, or are you considering somebody else? Because I got another one I can throw out there if y'all don't think he's a breakout candidate.
I do. I think that is a breakout candidate because the thing for me is that it goes to another level of play. He hasn't done it on this level. I think he can, but he has to show improve.
Yeah,
that's the same thing I was thinking. Coming into the SEC, you say you leading the team in tackles where you come from. You can come to the SEC, have 100 tackles, but be that person in the middle of that field that controls everything, and getting past you is something that he comes to Texas A&M to do. I think, like Poe said, you hit it right on the nail. Like I don't think you could have went with anything better because knowing the run stop that you guys had to deal with, I think he comes in and he plugs that up right away. And he could possibly get that amount of tackles and more. SEC runs the ball. They screen passes, you name it. So he's in the right position to have a breakout season.
Well, we lost Torian York, who was supposed that guy. You know, he's in the NFL. But Ray Coney is up. Rob, you especially seeing it with Texas and Texas A&M. York was always undersized.
Mm-hmm.
Coney's bigger. So we have plenty of linebackers and stuff that can flow and run, same as every other major program. But we didn't have that thumper. And that's what Ray Coney brings. You'll know when he hits you. So, and he's a very, obviously, with 129 or whatever it was tackles, you'll know he knows how to wrap up and bring you down. He knows how to tackle. Because, you know, you see so much nowadays, these guys just run up and hit people and hope they fall over. Ray Coney is one that knows how to put the arms around you and get you to the ground. So that's why I went with Ray Coney having a breakout. I don't expect 120-something tackles out of the guy. I hope not. I hope he's not doing that, but I think he can be a leader up front with A&M's defense and kind of help him take the next step. So that's where I went with him. We're sitting about an hour and 15. Anybody got anything else they want to mention real quick? Anything going on? Anything we want to throw out?
I got a couple of names I'd like to throw out there before we wrap up that I had on my list. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Savion Hitter can do at the running back position at Michigan. I feel like he has an opportunity to come in there and really do some really great things for Michigan in the style of play that they play. We know that they're going to be a running team. I'm anxious to see what he does. And I also, another running back out of USC, Wayman Jordan. I want to see what he does at USC. Is he going to be able to really be one of those dynamic running backs that we've seen in the past from USC to really turn the corner or help USC turn the corner and make it to the college football playoffs? And the last player that I would like to mention is out of the University of Texas at cornerback. On the defensive side of the ball, I want to see if Cade Phillips was a true freshman last year. Is he going to be able to turn the corner and be the kind of guy that we need to be? He's a really ball-hawking cornerback, but will he be able to turn the corner this year as a true sophomore and really help Texas solidify that defensive backfield?
Yeah, no doubt about that, Rob. A guy I want people to pay attention to, and you can say he's already broken out with 11 sacks last season at Utah, but he's been dealing with knee surgery, I believe. He transferred to Michigan. John Henry Daly. Keep an eye on this guy, man. If he's healthy and ready to go, I think he's going to have a monster season for the Wolverines in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm gonna stay with SMU. I don't know why some people will be like, man, you're an SMU fan, but nah. Speaking of the injury, they have an edge rusher, Akil Washington, big playmaker. And when you talk about the edge position at SMU, something that they needed to get after the quarterback last year, and with them having a healthy edge rusher, and there was so much talk about him before the season started, and he got injured, had an injury before the season started last year, so he wasn't able to play, which gave him another season of eligibility. So I think, having Booker, Washington, this SMU defense, this could be a year to where they turn that corner defensively in the ACC and become that, have a different swagger as well. So, just some things to think about a player that I had in mind when thinking about some of the top players in that ACC. I couldn't keep him off my list, and I had to talk about him. I think he'll be a playmaker for them this year.
I'm going to throw a couple of quick names out too here at the end. So one is I'm going to stay at A&M on this one here. DJ Hicks, defensive lineman, 5-star, coming out of high school, just kind of he's been okay. But it's going into his senior year. This kid needs to step up and be the leader on that defensive line. You've brought in some players in the transfer portal. Post game, you for one know Mike Elko's defense. This kid's been in that defense for 3 years. He's got to be the anchor of that defensive line and teaching all the cadence and the calls and everything. So I'm looking for a really big breakout. He's the one that can plug the run for us. He's that DJ Reader type that's just going to shut down the run game up the middle. That's what he needs to be for a breakout. My other breakout might be a little bit of a stretch because I've heard his name mentioned a lot, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the kid's name, but he's from Cal, and it's the quarterback at Cal. When you think of Cal, it's just kind of one of those, what are they going to do? But this kid's got the talent. Jaron, JKS is what I call him. Because I can't even attempt that name. It was like the lineman from Penn State last year. But I'm looking for that kid. Not saying he's going to position himself as a Heisman front runner or anything like that. But he's somebody I'm watching that can put up some crazy numbers and have a hell of a year. So I want to keep an eye on him too out there in Cal.
I'm glad you mentioned DJ Hicks because I totally forgot about DJ Hicks, man. I know coming out of high school, Texas wanted him so badly because at that time, Texas was having a lot of issues getting guys in the trenches. And so they needed somebody like him to fill that void. But, of course, Texas A&M won that battle. But I forgot all about DJ Hicks. I hope he has a breakout season this year. He deserves to because he's a guy who stuck it out at A&M. He didn't leave, but he was a highly sought after defensive tackle coming out of high school. So I definitely want to see DJ Hicks ball out this year, except not in the last game.
Yeah, we're kind of both on that. I mean, I'd like to see Colin Simmons decide to just take a break in the last game. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, that's true. Coming out of high school there, he was crazy. I remember watching him in high school, and he just dominated the defensive line. So other than that, anybody got anything else you want to throw out real quick, or are we good to roll? What do we want to do here real quick?
Go check out the website, WTPSportsNews.com. Everything has been updated. Go check it out.
Yeah, I would say, make sure y'all tune in, man. I've been getting a lot of calls about the conversations with Mossberg. I'm glad to announce, I'm not going to tell you. Just stay tuned in to Level Up Sports 10 Instagram and all the updates. I got a big conversation coming this Friday, man. My heart's bubbling, my chest's bubbling. Got a phone call yesterday, man. And when I say this interview has been a process I've been waiting to bring it to, and I can't wait to bring it to you this Friday evening. It'll be at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Definitely stay tuned. And I'm just not airing it out yet because, everybody going to try to get a shot in this interview. But I think this is a special one. Me and this gentleman have known each other for quite a time. Great basketball player, great father, great man in general himself, as well as a now basketball coach as well, leading some of the youngsters throughout the city and state to what he know and what he did. And I'm going to just give you a hint. He went to a college and he just not took on everything that he had to take on being a great freshman, but he continued his years and became successful in what he did at that university. I'm just so happy to bring this conversation to, and I can't wait till this Friday's episode of another conversation with Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10 as well.
For sure. I will mention I got hit up last night. Somebody that I know that watches us and stuff asked when we were going to start with the NFL stuff. They want to get into some of that. And I told them to stay tuned. That'll be coming up later into August for sure. So
Got you.
I told them it'll become, this person's a big CJ Stroud fan. So they're obviously a Houston Texans fan. Knowing I'm from Houston, they were wondering. So I told them, stay tuned, pump the brakes a little bit, calm down. We'll get there. Just keep tuning in every show and you'll eventually get to hear what you want. So other than that, we'll go ahead and cut on out of here. Rob, you mentioned the website. I'll have all this dropped up to our Patreon page later on this afternoon, evening. We got post game down there with the post game 86 podcast and doing a lot of Notre Dame stuff. Dropped something last night too. I need to go check that one out.
Drop the banger.
Moss over there. Level Up Sports 10. We got Moss down there. All the other channels are scrolling down to the bottom with Parlay Poe. We've got One Take Zay out there. Go like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification bell. You'll know when we go live. So if you want, any college football chats coming, we got conversations with Moss. We're going to have some NFL breakdowns. We're going to be covering the whole topic of it all. So, y'all go like, subscribe, share, hit the notification, and let's get this thing popping. And other than that, we will catch up with y'all on the next show.
As we always do, man. T1, he say we was in the building. We appreciate what you did today, SEC Sean. Great job hosting, doing what you do. We was in the building, and now we out. We appreciate y'all. Peace.
Yep. Peace.